Patriots, I've been seeing a lot of chatter on social media about the minister's statement on RDP houses not being allowed to be sold. I'll play the full video of the minister explaining this issue, but I know some of you might still be confused about what she said. So listen closely, and we'll go through it step by step. We'll also dive into street committees and ANC ward councilors who sell these houses. But let's start with the basics. The stands. If you were given a stand by the housing department or your ward counselor, it's important to understand that the stand isn't yours to sell, even if you have a document stating you're the occupant. Usually, these documents come from the housing department, which will visit each stand to check who lives there, whether they are employed, how many kids they have, and the number of structures on the stand. These visits happen randomly, and they can come more than twice without any notice. This document, often titled Permit to Occupy, means you don't own the stand, you're just permitted to live there. Now that we've covered the stands, let's talk about the houses. You can only sell your RDP house if it's more than 8 years old and you've received the title deed. I'll repeat that. You may sell your RDP house if it's over 8 years old and you have the title deed in hand. Now, let's get into the process of selling. If you have a buyer, both of you need to go to a lawyer to help with the transfer of ownership. The lawyer will assist with all the necessary documents, and once you and the buyer agree, the buyer can either deposit the money into the lawyer's trust account or directly to you, depending on your negotiation. However, the lawyer must be aware of all the transactions and advise accordingly. The lawyer will then use your documents and your agreement to ensure all outstanding bills, like water and electricity, are settled before applying for the change of ownership at the deeds office. This whole process can take between a month and 6 months, depending on how quickly things move along. Plus, it's up to the three of you, the seller, buyer, and lawyer, to decide if the buyer can move in immediately or if the seller stays as a tenant until the ownership transfer is complete. I hope that clears things up a bit. Let's keep the conversation going, and we'll talk more about the street committees and ANC ward councilors who are involved in selling these houses. Patriots, Minister Kubai is raising some serious issues at the housing office. She's saying there are stacks of title deeds sitting there, but plenty of these houses have already been sold illegally. It's a big surprise even to her that many of these houses haven't even hit the 8-year mark, but are already being sold off. We know the story of Alexandra and Bram Fisher. People from Alexandra were given houses built far away in Bramfisher, miles from their workplaces, and some ended up selling those houses within just 6 months. Back then, some of those houses went for as low as 10,000 Rand. The same thing happened with people from Orlando East who were given houses in Laha and ended up selling them too. This is exactly what the minister is talking about. Now, there's legislation on this matter, the Housing Act of 1997. This law clearly states that RDP homeowners aren't allowed to sell their property within the first 8 years of receiving it. This rule is meant to stop the rapid resale of these subsidized homes, making sure they serve their real purpose, providing housing for low-income folks. But here's the catch, Patriots. Once that 8-year period is over, homeowners can sell their houses, but there might still be conditions to make sure the sale doesn't go against housing policy goals. We've always known that poor people might be tempted to sell these houses. Now, this brings us to a critical point. Are the current property rights laws really patriotic? Think about it. These laws don't distinguish between a foreigner and a South African. According to the law, a South African and a foreigner are seen as the same. So technically, a Nigerian or a Chinese national could buy 10,000 RDP houses if they have the title deeds, and the houses are older than 8 years. It's no wonder that foreigners all over the world are praising our Constitution as the best. It's because, under these property rights laws, everyone is treated as a local. This Constitution is often called progressive, and it's not by mistake. But let's be real, Patriots. Progressivism can lead to chaos. When you look at some of the legislation, you can see that MPs tried to be patriotic, but whoever drafted the Constitution sold out, bowing down to parasitic interests. The reality is, any legislation that's inconsistent with the Constitution is basically useless. Even if the minister discovers that a Nigerian owns 800 RDP houses, there's little she can do, because under this Constitution, there's no such thing as a local, just a human being. So, without any further ado, let's watch the minister in the following clip, and then we'll dive into how street committees, ward councilors, and many ANC members working in housing are involved in selling these RDP houses.
Now, as I move out of this, I thought it's important for me not to leave the podium without talking about what South Africans are worried about. You would have seen somebody has been circulating and tagged me on social media about the issues. I think it's a video of Kwenikune where it shows that there are some people who have gone back to be able to sell the houses, the RDP houses, syndicates and all that. And we have been able to say to South Africans, we went to Minmec, we acknowledge that this is an area that we must pay attention to, because we have to worry about so many houses that have been built. Many people still say that they are looking for an RDP. And the question says, who is in our RDPs? And that's why we took this decision. In the coming months, once we have done the analysis, we'll come back to you. But our approach here, I have asked the legal team in the department to work together with legal firms, together with forensic investigation, to go and do a proper analysis across all our assets. We've committed to the Auditor General and everybody else that, and one of the proposals in our white paper talks about asset register and asset management in terms of the houses that we have. Now, the challenge here is that we have people, we have given them the RDPs, and we find it when we issue title deeds. Many of the title deeds remain sitting, not being issued because either the person has been deceased, there's a fight in the house, but two, you find that some of the houses were sold before 8 years has been lapsed, that some of the houses were sold before 8 years has been lapsed, some of the houses were sold before 8 years has been lapsed, in violation with our act, but also you find that others have sold the houses, and this is where you find that also the issue around people who are saying to us there are foreign nationals in these houses. So what we have taken as a decision is that we are going to do, because it needs legal firm and forensic. For example, if it's a syndicate that is operating, you want the ability to be able to determine this is a syndicate that is operating, but they must have the ability themselves to be able to evict, issue lawyers, that's why we want the lawyers, to be able to evict the people who are there, but also assist us in terms of prosecutions. Because we believe that we can't go on like this. We initially thought that we'll do the operation Ziveze, where you go into communities, utilize, for example, in Gauteng, we thought that we'll utilize Mapanya to go and determine. But we then have determined that the problem is deeper. Because if you find it's a syndicate that has bought like 500 RDPs, they are leasing them out, or they are renting them out, or they are doing. So you need the ability to be able to prosecute, to prepare a case to go to court. And that's why we would want the ability of the forensics to do the work, but also the legal firm to prepare a case so that we do not have unwinnable cases in that. I have said to South Africans, those who have sold our houses, those who have bought our houses, they must return their houses, our houses back before we arrive. So that time has arrived. I've given them enough warning since 2021. So I hope South Africans will not call us ruthless and heartless when people are arrested, because it's the right thing to do. We have to account for state funds. So this is what we want to do in terms of the work in this area.
Did you hear that, Patriots? Now, don't believe everything you see on social media. Often, these syndicates are buying houses directly from housing officials. And guess who the middlemen usually are? It's often the street committee members, ward councilors, or ANC members. These folks know every single house in the community like the back of their hand. You could drive them around their township, and they'd tell you exactly which houses have been sold illegally and whether the occupants are Zimbabweans or Nigerians. They know the full story. But here's the kicker. They don't have access to the system to change the name of the permit holder. However, they do have access to the person who does, and that's where the real problem starts. These guys rarely get caught because the real owners are often told their houses aren't approved yet. The applicants, who are the rightful owners, end up giving up while an illegal occupant settles in. In some cases, though, legal occupants do find their way into their homes. But to evict an illegal occupant, you'll need a court order. And if that occupant ignores the court order, then you have to call the sheriff to carry out the eviction. The law doesn't allow you to demolish or remove any property that the illegal occupant might have added. So if they extended the house, installed tiles, or even built a swimming pool, it all stays. Because remember, occupying that house illegally is theft, and the law has its own way of dealing with it. Patriots, thanks for tuning in. Let's keep the conversation going in the comment section. And remember, stay sharp and stay informed.